Yep, my dad asked me to shoot him. And I was like, you know what? I love you, but no. Cannot do it, Captain. I do not have the power. Now, here's a bit about my story, okay? So, my dad at 9 years old lost his dad and was raised, let's remember, in a society that was conditioning our parents and our grandparents to condition us to be industrialized. He really believed he had to be a provider. He really believed his identity was that, and that if he couldn't be a provider, there was no reason for him to live. He could not see that his connection to his family or to anything that he was doing was bigger than just the identity he had made up in his mind. And so he had a spinal cord injury that stopped all of his fine motor abilities. And I'm all like, don't worry, don't worry. Like, you can heal from this. And this is before, like, this was probably 15 years ago. So it was before. There are ways now to heal from spinal cord things. And so I wasn't wrong, but it wasn't that time. It wasn't that time. So it was really difficult for him to handle that he could no longer be a provider. And he literally would say to me, like, okay, I changed your diaper, or you're not changing mine. And I'm like, it's all good. Here's the thing. I'm in social work at this time, and I'm actually taking suicide intervention and prevention. And so I'm with him every step of the way because I'm like in social work. So I'm lobbying for his best interest, and I'm trying to get him some sort of assistance, which was all in a gray area. This is what made me realize, wow, the system is completely flawed. I've seen it in so many different demeanors. And so, yeah, I was like, okay, hoops. Like, they literally took him out of the home and put him in an old age home, and he was 60. He is like, I'm surrounded by death. What am I doing here? I can't, what am I supposed to do? And I'm like, we can learn to paint with your toes. Come on. You can be like, who was that person in the wheelchair that talked through and was so inspirational? And so absolutely, I kept bringing him up, and he'd be like, oh, you're like my earth angel. And so he made it as long as he could, and then he started getting down and down and down. When they finally said, okay, like we've got to book you in, and there's no way that we could send you home because there's just no services that could be provided that far, and whatever. There was so many things. And he gave up. And so I'm grieving because I had already lost him. I knew it. And it didn't make it easier though when he comes to me and he's just like, I'm done. I can't live like this. I'm like, okay, I get it. And here I am in social work, and I'm doing the program, and I'm suicide intervention. But do you have a plan? He's like, yep. I'm like, fuck. Okay. What's your plan? He's like, I'm not telling you. I'm like, well, okay, back to the textbook. Like, what do you do? So I'm trying so hard. So I'm calling crisis intervention, and I'm getting other people involved, and I'm trying to book them in, and it doesn't matter. Like, the system is so flawed. There is no way. I got a psychologist in who is like, you know what? It would take me 7 years to even begin to break the mindset that he has at this point. So I was like, oh my gosh. So then I'm like, okay. So I did the next step is like, okay, if you're going to do anything, please call me first. Don't actually take your life. Call me first. Right. So then he, at one point, asked me to shoot him. And I was like, I can't do as much as I can understand that you feel you have no more quality of life. And really, standing in his shoes, there was no more quality of life for him through his perception. And it killed me inside watching that. It, like, absolutely detrimental to see that, right? And just wanting so much to bring some light to that darkness. But when somebody is blocked and stuck on the way that they feel and think, unless they want to change it, there's nothing you can do. So now I have to accept that. So he was like, well, okay, if you're not going to help me, then I'm going to get someone else to help me. Okay, well, so then all his friends are coming to me and being like, did your dad ask you? And I'm like, yeah, you guys, we've got to do everything we can to support him and bring him love. And the thing was that a strong man full of pride like that don't want nobody around to see them when they're struggling, right? So he was pushing everyone away. And so, okay, so then he decides that he's going to do it, and I don't know how. And so he's telling me, I'm not coming home this weekend or whatever. I'm not going to. And I'm like, okay, well, what are you doing? And so he's like, I'm not telling you. And I'm like, okay, well, so then I go to everybody and I'm like, listen, don't take him out of the hospital. Don't, like, just let it be for a second there. And I need to go away to camp for a minute just to get my mind right. And when I get back, we'll figure something out. Well, as soon as I take off to camp, he finds a way to call up his family member and convince them to take him home for a visit. Gets into a fight with them so that his family member will leave so that he can then finish shooting himself. And unfortunately, the family member is the one that found them. So this is an incredible story about how I had to digest the fact that society destroyed someone that I loved just because of pride. And it was an ego attachment to pride. So please share this with any man out there that you know that is struggling with this identity. And please know that it's okay to receive help, to receive love, to let someone else be the provider for you. Because we all have like a masculine and a feminine side that need to be yin and yang and in balance. There's no need to be so rough and tough and suck it up. And it was just so wow. Even though I knew, it was still like, what? Because I thought that I had also removed all of the guns. I thought that I had talked to everybody and made sure. So when I went back to my family member and said, what made you decide to take him out that day? Like, I told you that he had this plan and to not. And he was like, you know what? He had me convinced. Like, he had me convinced that he just wanted a day out. And but yeah, he wanted out. And you know what's interesting? Here we are now in this day and age with assisted suicide. Isn't that interesting? And I was twisted about it at first, but then I reflected on, you know what? In his situation, what a far better way to honor his pride instead of him having to make that decision like that. And I remember also saying to him, like, I've got to be able to see you in the casket. So if you're going to shoot yourself, you can't shoot yourself in the head. And he was like, okay, well, I'll figure it out. And I learned from the doctors and nurses that he had faked a heart attack so that he could see exactly where they were placing everything, to find out exactly where his heart was. And I was doing therapy with him every single day for like 6 months. And because he didn't have any fine motor skills, he wanted to, he said, press the buttons and be able to, like, right? But what was this? It was the trigger finger. So you have to understand that when somebody has a plan, when somebody believes something, this is why I preach about mindset and about the importance of being so conscious about what it is that you think about. Because what you think about and you believe about, you bring about, and there was another way, but no way for him to see it. And that's okay. That's okay. Because in retrospect now, I know that he's at peace, and I know that you cross over and you're on the other side, because I've had incredible angel messages and signs from him all of the time, all of the time. And I know that he's at peace, and I know that he I wouldn't say regrets it, because it it was it was also a gift to me, because I would have gave up my entire life to be there for him. And I did, and I was. And I remember at one point, because I was in university, and he was like, put your calendar on my whiteboard in his hospital room, so that when I would come in, he'd be like, are you supposed to be in school right now? Or are you like skipping school to be with me? And I was just so thrilled, because he was always a busy trucker who was never around. And I actually got to have time with him during that time. And what an incredible experience, I'll tell you. It's such an incredible experience. I don't know if anyone else can relate to this. I haven't heard too many people tell the story about knowing about somebody's suicide. Usually it's a shock. Even though I knew about it and we had talked about it, it was still a shock, let me tell you. And here's the thing. I had to let my ego go, because I remember being at his casket and being like, I wasn't ready. I'm so glad that you're at peace. God bless you. But I wasn't ready. I wasn't ready to let go. But that was my own ego attachment to like wanting to have a father, and, and all of those things. But what a journey. What a journey. So if you wonder why I am obsessed with mind, body, soul, and spirit connection, understanding, and taking care of the most important thing that we have, this mainframe computer right here. It ain't the devices that we were given to replace it. It's this. It's your mainframe. And please understand how important it is that you work on keeping yourself in check. If you're feeling off, like I'll tell you, my entire life, if I felt off for a second, I ran for therapy, ran for it. I was like, and I had the best psychologist ever, the best psychologist, and for like over 15 years. And I couldn't have made it without somebody on the outside, right? Because if you're only trying to figure things out on your own in your own head, in the environment that you're in, while you're going through and you don't have any way to release that, dis-ease is going to set in. Nobody can go through that alone, and we're not meant to go through it alone. Don't have too much pride. Reach out. And actually, I have a link, if you're interested, in my description for a one-on-one empowerment call. If you want to be seen, heard, validated, understood, there ain't nothing that you can share with me that's going to shock me or think that I haven't necessarily been through it myself. I don't share the darkness that I went through, because I'm all about just trying to focus on the light. But I just felt instinctively like I needed to share this story. Somebody needed to hear it. And I'm wishing everybody so much love and light as we rise, as we break away from the ego and understand that we're a soul. There's so much more to life than the identity that is attached to that ego sense. Please watch my video that I just made about it's ego versus soul, ego matrix versus the soul awakening. Big difference. That's what the title is. Check it out. I'll maybe put a link in this video description too, so that you can easily click on that. So follow me, subscribe, leave a comment, leave a question. Let's connect. This is a journey. We're all on it. And we're all at different ages and stages of our development, right? Same like when we're actually growing from toddler to youth to adult. There's a spiritual ages and stages as well. So at any age or stage that you're at, reach out and let's rise and shine for the greater good of humanity. The time is now. Nobody is alone, and nobody needs to suck it up, and nobody needs to go through anything alone. I love you. Much love. Peace.